December 12th, I was 15 years old, and it was a date I will never forget. It was the school ringing my mother to tell her that we couldn't go back to the school because we had not paid our school fees. And that was the day I found out that we were bankrupt. I found out that my father was bankrupt and we were bankrupt, and I was 15 years old. Massive impact on your life at 15, because you think at 15 you just walk forward and you go straight, and then the rug is pulled from without, underneath you. So I feel that moment in my life is a really important moment for me, because you go through a lot of turmoil, divorces, moving countries, moving houses, and you really feel like, well, how do I make sure that doesn't ever happen again? So I feel it's a great learning in my life, and there's two great learnings that have very much applicability to what I'm talking about today, which is innovating in Japan. The first one is really I'm looking at how do you build an antenna so that you don't think what's ahead of you here is real. And you really realize that this is fake, because something's going on over here, something's going over here, something's behind you. And there's tectonic plates that are moving every day that can impact your situation. So what's in front of you is not real. And you build an antenna to make sure you can see if that rug is going to be pulled, or what is the risk. And that antenna is very important, because having that antenna in Japan really helps you as a founder. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The second one was value creation. Value creation is very important. After we got that call, the school told me, you're allowed to play in the cricket tournament before you leave. I was the captain of the cricket team, and this tournament was against the top schools in Australia. So I thought, wow, that's a great opportunity before I leave. And what happened was I scored a century in 3 games out of 4. And in cricket, scoring 100 runs, which is a century, is very good. Scoring 3 in a row is really good. The next day after the tournament, the school rang and said, you've got a cricket scholarship to stay. So in my life, at 15, I realized, wow, if you create value, your circumstances can change within a week, right? And that's very important in Japan as well, creation of value. So my learnings today for you is about, you're going to get a lot of no's in Japan, okay? You're going to get a lot of no's about, you can't do that in Japan. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why and our learnings of how we did that. First of all, just to prove to you, this is about building technology, building a business. I'm not talking about valuations, I'm talking about we love to build. So we've built the first buy now, pay later with credit card. We've built the first buy now, pay later direct to your bank account, which means we've built APIs into 20 of the big banks in Japan, which means you can pay your bills directly from your bank account. Building APIs into banking here is quite hard. We're first to launch point of sale or NFC for buy now, pay later. We're the first time SMBC VCs invested pre-Series A. And why I'm saying this to you is we've built. So my learnings is not theoretical, it's from someone with a team that have done incredible things in Japan. And today, I want to announce that we've just launched a new product, embedded insurance. So we're the first to have embedded insurance with Chubb for travel insurance in Japan. And that's really exciting for us. And so we've built a number of products, a number of technologies. So I want to share what are the learnings in relation to that antenna and in relation to building value. So all of us know the Hofstede model. The Hofstede model shares the different values and behaviors of different countries. And really what it shows is the differences between countries. It's not good or bad, it's just how we're different. And helps us culturally understand how we should behave. And what I'm going to focus on today is three learnings for you. Power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. And you can see how big Japan is different on uncertainty avoidance and long-term orientation versus UK, US, and India. Massive difference. So when you're getting the no's in Japan, it's often in those areas, okay? First thing about Japan, I think it's the greatest country. The society, the harmonious aspect of how everybody lives, the food, the culture is incredible. So this society is built because of that. So it's not our job to change that, it's our job to know how to work with that. Just to understand is we had to build this ecosystem, right? This is not just about building a cool app and then you walk away. We had to work with SMBC, we had to work with the 20 banks, we had to integrate with those 20 banks, we had to sign contracts with those 20 banks. We had to work with regulators, we had to work with RDN and Stripe and payments, merchants. So it's a massive ecosystem that we are working with in Japan. So really, the first point is around power distance. And power distance is the extent to which individuals in a society accept an equal distribution of power. And Japan is highly hierarchical. What it means is that the boss will make the decisions. Often the subordinate will do what the boss says. And it's a very formal work environment. So what's my learning to you? It's not about your relationship with the boss. It's relationship with the point of contact you have in that company. And that point of contact is the first person you'll meet from that company. And the first thing that that person thinks of is not how good is this business for me, how do we do business together, what's the value proposition. The first thing the point of contact asks themselves is, how much risk is this to my career? That's really important to understand. If I do business with this person or even introduce this person internally, will I be embarrassed? So that's a very different framework with point of contacts. Your point of contact is actually your customer. So what they need is a detailed plan of how this is going to work. They need documentation for internal buy-in. And they need a lot of documentation for internal buy-in. You basically have to do the thinking for them to speak to tech, sales, marketing, and develop that documentation. And everything is about documentation here. And very importantly, you need to respect patience. In Japan, if you push, you go slower. So your relationship with patience and quality of documentation is critical, and that's how you move fast. Second, uncertainty avoidance. So that's the extent which individuals in a society feel threatened by ambiguity and uncertainty. As a founder, you love ambiguity and uncertainty because that's where the money is, right? That's where the opportunities are. But then you come to Japan and, wow, ambiguity and uncertainty is not the place we want to be. We need structure. We need processes. We don't want to take risks. We like standardized procedures. We like process. And that's deeply ingrained here, very deeply ingrained. So how do we deal with that? So when you're building something new, you're obviously dealing with a huge amount of ambiguity. And none of us know the answer, right? But you have to walk into a room thinking about what that answer could be. So what you're learning? A founder, important to contextualize ambiguity. What's the context of this ambiguity? So it gives them a framework. For us, directed payments was really hard, right? So we had to build a whole new system directly into the banks. So the consumer can basically, on our app, see their bank accounts, choose which bank account, and then select which one to pay from. So the ambiguity and the risk for the regulator was massive. We're a startup. And how come you've got all this information on the consumer? So your security and safety of your system cannot be ambiguous. There should be no risk. There should be a 30-page document on how there is no risk in that. But there can be ambiguity in the UX. So how we dealt with the regulator was actually we built the product with the regulator. And I've never done that in Australia or US or UK. UK, in those countries, you submit. Here, the regulator was wonderful. We built with the regulator. Now, our product with direct-to-bank is two authentication. You have to have a face authentication before you go into your bank accounts, and then another one before you pay. And they wanted that for security. And we could build it, and they were really happy. Now, initially, our engineers were like, oh, what are we doing? This UX is terrible. There's two auths. Why are we doing two auths, you know? But really, for the consumer, it was wonderful because they felt safe. So the regulator was right. The final thing here is I'd say that working with the regulator really built our relationship. I find in Japan, the Japanese are brilliant at workshops. They're very creative in workshops. They're really good at problem solving. And that can even be very senior people. They're very, very creative. So get into a workshop and really solve the problem with that customer is critical. Final learning. So obviously long-term orientation is very high in Japan. And that's emphasized in education, your career, and even long-term relationships. So the biggest learning for me was long-term orientation wasn't what we see in the West, which is this beautiful vision statement that's surrounded by a beautiful picture and 3 lines. That is not long-term orientation. Long-term orientation in Japan is basically extremely detailed. Here's 5 years, and here's 30 pages of detail how we're going to get there. Not only that, I'm going to meet you weekly to see if you're reaching every KPI in that 5-year plan. Big learning. If you miss a KPI with a partner, you have to go meet them and explain why you've missed it and how you're going to fix it. That's on every KPI. And I feel that's why Japan society is so successful, is their long-term vision is detailed, it's execution-orientated, and it's every week we're updating each other. But that process is very, very important for all leadership to have. So finally, I'd say this is a great society, a great culture. People coming here for the first time, or founders, or business people, there's been a lot of no's. You'll hear a lot of no's, and you'll get frustrated. And my only advice is think about the culture you're entering and think about how you can reframe that for your own story. Thank you very much for your time.